Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we're talking about another new formulation of a Chanel foundation, this time the Vitalumière. But before we go any further, let's take a second to grab our iced coffee or a hot coffee. Let's take a sip and let's get started. As many of you know, I now have my online beauty consulting service, which is where you get the chance to talk to me one-on-one about any beauty concern you might have. Whether you want to talk about makeup items you'd like to buy or just go over your makeup kit, it's really up to you. So to make the appointment, click the link in the description box down below. All right, we are talking about the Vitalumière foundation, not the Vitalumière Aqua. Those are two separate products. And this here is a new formulation, very, very similar to the Ultra Le Teint, which we talked about previously. So recently, Chanel has just been reformulating a bunch of their products, their blushes, eyeliners, and now they're moving on to some of their foundations. So we're going to go ahead and talk about a bit of the old formula versus new, shade range, application, wear test, all of that. To start off with, we're going to read off some of the claims and descriptions here. So on the Chanel Canada site, it is 72 Canadian plus tax. It's in a glass bottle and it's 30 milliliters, which is the standard size for a Chanel foundation. So let's read the description, the claims, all of that. The Vitalumière foundation is a radiant, moisture-rich fluid foundation. It guarantees 8 hours of wear for non-stop hydration and comfort, a silky texture that feels comfortable on the skin, and a true source of radiance. Pay attention to those keywords. Your complexion is supposed to look satiny, even, and rested looking. It's supposed to be a medium coverage as well, and it says it is suitable for normal to dry types. I will give you my thoughts and opinions at the end. Now, if we look at the ingredient list, the first ingredient is water. So radiant, moisture-rich, etc. The claims here do seem to have some backing. Now, as I stated, this is a new formulation. The biggest difference that I'm seeing here is the old formula had an SPF, a very low SPF of like 15 or 20, and in the new formulation here, it has been removed completely. I think that's perfectly fine. I do not look towards makeup for SPF coverage. I use a sunscreen beforehand, and I think you should as well. Having an SPF in your makeup is fine, but it does not offer actual sun protection. Now, let's move on to the shade range. I remember the Vitalumière foundation from when I worked at the Chanel counter several years ago. I stopped working at the counter in like 2014, 2015, around that time. And I remember that this foundation was not that popular. It was around and we had our very loyal clients who always repurchased it, but it was not the foundation that was always flying off the shelves. And if I remember correctly, it was a lot more mature skin women who preferred this product. And I remember that the shade range was quite limited. Now, when I go on the US Chanel site, there are 3 shades to choose from. 3, 1, 2, 3. It starts at 20, 30, and then 35. So there's that. On the Canadian Chanel site, we have 10 shades to choose from. And the first one is number 7, which I've never seen before, and ends at number 60. From what I remember about this shade range is it was a little bizarre. It isn't the most encompassing. Clearly, it has 3 shades in the US, but a lot of the shades had a very warm golden undertone. And if anything, this shade range reminds me of the shade range from Cils. Just very hit or miss. It jumps a lot and there's not enough nuance. So if you're a person who has like a perfect shade match with this foundation, you're one of the lucky chosen few. But I think for this foundation, you will definitely need to go into a store and get matched or get samples because it doesn't translate to the rest of the shades available within the Chanel house. That being said, I'm going to show you 3 shades that I have here. The first one is number 25 Pétale, number 30 Cendré, and 35 Soft Bisque. These all have some warmth to them. The last one in particular is darker and warmer. The center shade number 30 looks a bit more neutral, but even number 25 Pétale looks warm as well. So I think I'll just do a couple little dots here to see what we think looks best. So here we have 25, 30, and then 35. It's interesting because they kind of look a little similar on my skin. I'm gonna let them sit for a second and see if they oxidize. I blended them out a little bit just to see. This number 35 here is a giant no merci, but between 30 and 25, it's kind of a close call. I am going to try number 30 because historically that has been my shade throughout all of my other Chanel foundations. But remember, this one here, Vitalumière, is a little bit special. So maybe I'll do one side with 30 and one side with 25. Let's do that. So here we have one layer of 30. It still looks pretty light. This is a light to medium coverage foundation, but one thing to notice is this is a liquid foundation, but it's not quite as runny as some other formulas. I find it's like a liquid, slightly creamy as well. So here is one coat. I'm gonna add a little bit more coverage and build it up just a little bit more. Now that I have a half face, I think 30 is a pretty good match for me, but let's do 25 on this side just for fun. Okay, so we have a full face of the foundation, 25 on this side, 30 on this one. Let me know in the comments, which one do you think looks better? Is there one that looks more natural? Is there one that just looks like my shade? Sound off down below. Looking at this, it looks pretty indistinguishable. I think maybe 25 looks a bit brighter. And remember, this is a radiant, moisture-rich foundation. As you can see, I look dewy and radiant. There is no primer, no powder. I'm gonna go ahead and add a bit of concealer and some blush and lipstick to complete the look. I'm using my new Chanel Corrector number 20 here. This is the new formula that offers a nice amount of brightness. I just put on a bit of blush. I put on Jersey, my favorite, and the lipstick is the Rouge Allure Velvet Extreme number 114 Epitome or Epitome. I love this bright raspberry color. So again, with a full face now, do you see a big difference in shade range? Honestly, it kind of looks indistinguishable, which I'm shocked by because, as I mentioned, the shade range for this one is a little interesting. So I thought that there would be a huge jump between 25 and 30. Normally I go for 30, but I'm not sure in this case, so sound off down below. So as you can see, my skin looks very dewy, very radiant. This will not be for oily skin. If you have dry skin, if you have dehydrated skin, if you have mature skin, or if you want a moisturizing, hydrating foundation for winter. If you live in an area where the winter sucks and it's cold and your skin always feels dry and parched, this is a foundation for winter. The amount of dewiness and radiance that you see is caused solely by the foundation. There's no primer, no powders, no highlighter. This is just the foundation. I'm going to include a wear test here. I didn't apply any setting spray or setting powders, just to show you how the foundation wears. I do find that this has a nice wear for 8 hours. However, the dewiness and the radiance stays put throughout the day. It enhances a little bit. I tend to get a little bit more shiny on my forehead towards the end of the day, and so the amount of dewiness that you see on my skin live just increases as the day goes on. However, my skin looks wonderful. It looks radiant, it looks dewy, it looks so healthy and moisturized. So if you're going to wear this, you really need to lean into this dewy skin here. It is still a little bit tacky or sticky if you touch it because it is so wet still. It doesn't feel wet on the skin, but it looks wet, and it holds up pretty well to mask wearing and all that. There is like a little bit of rubbing off that comes from taking the masks off and on. I have very conflicted feelings about the foundation because I love how radiant it is. I love how dewy it looks. I think if I wear this on like a regular day, I would wear powder. I would powder down my T-zone just to set a little bit. And because this is so radiant on its own, even with powder, you're going to shine and be a dewy dumpling anyway. So you can add powder and it's not going to change the formula very much. I think it's a travesty, the shade range. 3 shades in the US? That's insane. I'm honestly shocked to see this new formulation of this foundation here because, as I mentioned earlier, when I was working for Chanel several years ago, this was not a super popular foundation, mostly because the shade range was abysmal and it didn't really serve that many people. And I kind of forgot about this foundation. We have like the Les Beige, the Ultra Latte, the Velvet, Vitalumière Aqua, like those have always been much more popular. And I find it bizarre that they reformulated this foundation and kept a very poor shade range. I don't really understand what that's about. I don't know why they didn't extend the shade range because a lot of people like a really radiant, dewy, moisturizing foundation. This foundation is moisturizing. Like if you need your foundation to moisturize you during the day, this is it here. So I find this bizarre. I find it bizarre that they reformulated this one entirely. I thought for sure this was going the way of the dodo. I thought the Vitalumière was going to be discontinued at some point. It hasn't. It's come out with a new formula with, it seems like a worse shade range in the US. I don't remember how many shades there were before in the US. I thought there were more than 3, but I could be wrong. I think 10 is maybe what we had in Canada. I don't remember exactly, but it was something very small and very narrow. Like there's a very narrow gap of people who can wear this, and it just really sucks. Here in Canada, the darkest shade is number 60, and I have some foundations that I wear number 40, so that says that. And then in the US, I think the darkest shade is like 35, so I think after a beach vacation, I may not be able to wear 35. I'm just saying. If I had to compare this to another Chanel foundation, I guess like the Vitalumière Aqua could be one. Like it has a similar name, but the Aqua feels very different. This one feels almost more like a skin tint in a way. It's still very watery. It has a lot of water in it, but it's not going to be as moisturizing. This one here is much more fluid and runny and more sheer. I think the Vitalumière, you can build it up to a nice medium, like medium sheer coverage, whereas the Vitalumière Aqua is more lightweight, more summery. This Les Beige Healthy Glow Hydrating Longwear Foundation here, this has a similar level of dewiness and radiance, but the Vitalumière is more moisturizing, and this one here is just, it's very radiant, but it's not as moisturizing. I think as far as the finish here goes, the original Sublimage foundation, the one that comes in the jar, I think that one matches the level of moisture, the level of radiance, and the level of dewiness. If you like the finish, You might enjoy the Vitalumière. However, the Vitalumière offers more coverage. You can definitely hit closer to a medium with Vitalumière, whereas the Sublimage in a jar is more light coverage. For me, I love this type of finish, and I think it will be particularly beautiful in winter when my skin is dry and screaming for more moisture and more water. But let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think of the shade range? I'm just thinking of you guys in the States. I don't know what you're gonna do. I guess there are a lot of people who live within the 20 to 35 shade range, but like anyone else, you guys are out of luck, and I'm so sorry for that. I'm not exactly certain what to say. I'm very confused by this, but I don't know. I hope that they extend it. I honestly don't know why they didn't extend it to begin with. Like if they were going to do a new formula, or like a new formulation, they should have extended it. 3 shades. I've never seen this before. 3 shades. I mean, one person could easily live within 3 shades of foundation. So I don't know. Anyway, I hope this was helpful and not just really confusing. I like the finish. I think it's just a question of like principle. I'm like, how dare they only have 3 shades? We need to start some sort of like letter writing campaign to Chanel. Like, excuse me, we need at least 20 shades here for everyone. Maybe even 30, I'm just saying. Like, I'm so confused. I'm at a loss for words. Like, why did they reformulate this to make it like worse for like less people? I don't know. Anyway, I think that is the end of my confusion. Thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this shade range. Did you use Vitalumière before? Because it did have a very loyal following. I remember there were always people who would come and repurchase the same shades. That was like their foundation. So it did have a loyal following. It just didn't have a very large one because it didn't service everyone. But let us know what you think. What do you think of the finish? What do you think of the shade range? Let us know down below. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you all stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.